Okay, thank you guys for hanging in here. It's 2:45. I know y'all are probably getting a little antsy sitting in your chairs. So we're gonna just go through this real quick, and I want to end the day, my piece of ending the day, with just some food for thought. I sat and listened all day long all day long, the last 2 hours, to everybody speaking. And there's a few things that I took away. I took away a lot of information, a lot of really good information. But a couple of things that I took away from that were that we always end up looking at the parents like, why didn't they see it? Why we all see it. And if somebody I know is doing it, I see it. But as a parent, you have a very, very different perspective. So, don't worry, I'm not going to sit here and give you our whole story today, but I did want to mention, I'm the mother, proud mother of a young man. He's 26, in long-term sustained recovery. He's been sober for 6.5 years. He was a Grissom grad, went to Auburn. Things did not go as expected. He ended up calling home on March 12th of 2012, asking for help, went to treatment for a year. We're talking about long-term. Long-term is a critical piece of the story. Went to treatment for a year, is now just graduated from the University of Alabama with his second master's degree, and is working up in Washington, D.C. as a counselor for young people in substance abuse. So I tell you that story because it's important to know that there is reason to fight. There is reason to not give up on those kids. There's reason to not look at your neighbor and think they just must be clueless. They just must be out to lunch, because there's a lot more to it. And that's what I want to share the rest of the time that I'm talking to you. Because when I sit and I look at our story, our personal story, I look back, and I try not to look back much, but I do look back from time to time, and I think, like, what if I had known the things then that I know today? Because I've spent the last 6.5 years educating myself and learning everything that I possibly could. And what if I'd known all the things that I know today that I did not know then? For example, and Keith talked about this, what if I had known that addiction was a brain disease and not a moral failing or a character defect in my son? I walked around for a long time very embarrassed by his behaviors, because the behaviors that come with addiction are very frowned upon by our society. If you have any other disease, people show empathy and compassion, because even with some of the most debilitating diseases, we don't go and steal silverware from our next door neighbor. That's what happens with addiction. The things that are manifest from the disease of addiction are behaviors that are not that society does not accept. And so it's very difficult sometimes for us to feel compassion for those people. But what if I had understood while my son was going through it that it was not a character flaw on his side, but it was simply his brain was wired differently than other people's brains. And when he tried that substance for the first time, whether it was by prescription or recreationally, as many teenagers will do, when he tried it that first time, it had a completely different effect on his brain than it did on somebody else's brain. What if I had understood back then that you don't have to sit and wait for somebody to hit rock bottom? You know, you hear all the time about, well, they haven't hit rock bottom. Well, our goal is to bring rock bottom up. You don't have to wait till somebody has egregious life circumstances, that they're in jail or worse, before you start addressing the issue. You can help somebody and lead somebody to changing their life without waiting until they hit that proverbial rock bottom. The best way addiction was explained to me was that addiction is an elevator ride, and it starts at the top and it goes down, and it's which floor are you going to get off on? And why do we have to wait until they're at the very bottom of that elevator shaft? Why can't we try to get them off a little bit sooner? I wish I had understood that, because I might have acted differently. What if I had known back then that I didn't have to do this alone? There is a lot of shame, a lot of stigma that goes along with being the parent of a young person who's in active addiction. I could not have been more involved in my kids' lives. I was PTA president, booster club president, vacation Bible school coordinator. My husband coached all their Pee-wee game football teams down at McGuckin Park in South Huntsville. We were hands-on, we were present, and probably to the point that they wish that we had not been so. So I couldn't have done any more to be a part of their life, but when my son started using, I could not have felt more alone. Sitting in a gymnasium full of people at a wrestling tournament, cheering, yelling, clapping, they're sitting right next to me, they're my friends, we like each other, they're talking to me, and I feel alone. I feel completely alone, because what's the one thing that I can't tell them? It's the biggest thing that's happening in my life, and that's that I know something is very wrong, but I don't know how to talk about it. I don't know how to do anything about it. I don't have any resources. I didn't have to do that alone. I'm a breast cancer survivor, and one of the things that happened when I was diagnosed with breast cancer is that everybody I think I've ever known in my life circled around me. They loved me, they cared for me, they brought me things, they brought me blankets and pillows and casseroles and everything that I could have ever needed and wanted and more. The day that I took my son to rehab, it was crickets. There was nothing, there was not a casserole coming my way. So if you leave with nothing else today, if your neighbor takes their kid to rehab, run them over a chicken spaghetti casserole, because they will really appreciate it, because not many people will be doing that. What if I had known that there are some evidence-based, scientifically proven ways to help lead somebody to treatment? What if I had known that there were books like, anyway, like that book down there on the end that talks about things like parent collaboration. Like, you have to be on the same sheet of music with your spouse if you're going to adequately or effectively talk to your loved one that's using. What if you had some real practical tools to help you do that? What if I'd learned about positive communication, understanding the concept that there's red lights and green lights, and that when he rolls in and he's mad and he's this and that, that's not the time for me to hit him up on, hey, let's talk about maybe some possible options for you. But that there are green light moments out there that are. What if I'd have known that? What if I had understood the concept or the value of natural consequences? You know, if there is anything, anybody having babies in here, the day they're born, they need to give you a handout at the hospital that says, let them experience their natural consequences. This is not just for people using, this is for everybody that's raising children. What if I had understood that every time I called his place of employment while he was in high school to say why he couldn't be there, which was not a true statement, or made an excuse to the football coach, or woke him up like 54 times in the morning before school to try to get him out the door so he wouldn't have one more late, tardy thing and have a consequence to that. I spent my life trying to protect him from natural consequences, and all I was doing was perpetuating the problem. And then my very favorite, what about boundaries? Again, should be a handout on that when you have babies, is that you need to have firm boundaries as a parent, but nobody teaches you about that. Nobody taught me until my son was in recovery or in treatment about the hula hoop concept. Who in here knows about the hula hoop concept? See, only a couple right there, my friends, because I talk about it. So the hula hoop concept, I'll give you a 2-second quickie version. I could talk about it for an hour, but I won't. Is put yourself, you're standing there and you have a hula hoop around you, and everybody else in this room has a hula hoop around them. Everything inside that hula hoop is yours. It belongs to you. Everything in their hula hoop belongs to them. So you get to experience the positives that come from the things in your hula hoop and the negatives. If I choose to go to work on time every day, if I choose to dress according to the dress code, if I choose to eat healthy breakfast so that I'm nourished and ready for my day, then I get to have positive consequences and I get to own those things. They're all in my hula hoop. If I choose to show up late to work and I get fired, whose hula hoop is that in? Yours. It's in my hula hoop. But if my son chooses to do that, whose hula hoop is it in? His in? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Whose is it in? It's in his. But what do we do as parents? Oh, we jump, we dive into their hula hoops. and we sit there and we try to fix their things, and all that does is damage relationships, and it doesn't fix the problem. So understanding how to let people, how to have good, healthy boundaries, let people experience their own natural consequences are important. What if I had known that there were programs out there in the country like parent coaching? The Partnership for Drug-Free Kids nationally has a program, and Lori is a parent coach, and I'm a parent coach nationally. And we sit and take phone calls and talk to people all around the country that are dealing with children or loved ones, and it's free. It's all free. All you do is call 1-800 number, and they'll give you a parent coach, and you get to talk to them, and they get to help you. What an amazing resource. What if I'd have known that there was language that we can use that would create stigma, that would damage the way that my son was perceiving his illness? We don't have to call people junkies. We don't have to call people addicts. We can call people a person with a substance use disorder. If somebody has an eating disorder, do we call them a food abuser? No, we don't call them a food abuser. That would be a terrible thing to do. We reference the disease that they have, and they're a person with an eating disorder. Well, my son was a person with a substance use disorder. If he chooses to call himself in the rooms of AA or wherever an addict or a junkie or whatever he wants, go for it. That's his. But when I'm talking about him, I will do it with respect. Using people first language and getting away from stigmatizing language are things that could have made a difference in our relationship. What if I'd known things? So as a family member, you walk around in a state of fear. Fear because all those dreams and plans you had for your child are going down quick. And you can't see any hope out there. You can't see anything that's going to change this equation. And all you can see is that all those dreams are gone. But what if somebody told you that, you know what? It's okay to